Section 9 of The Rape of Lucrece. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Ariel Lipshaw. The Rape of Lucrece by William Shakespeare. Section 9. At last she calls to mind where hangs a piece of skilful painting, made for Priam's Troy, before the which is drawn the power of Greece, for Helen's rape the city to destroy. Threatening cloud-kissing Ilion with annoy, which the conceited painter drew so proud, as heaven, it seemed, to kiss the turrets bowed. 1,000 lamentable objects there, in scorn of nature, art gave lifeless life. Many a dry drop seemed a weeping tear, shed for the slaughtered husband by the wife. The red blood reeked, to show the painter's strife. The dying eyes gleamed forth their ashy lights, like dying coals burnt out in tedious nights. There might you see the laboring pioneer, begrimed with sweat and smeared all with dust, and from the towers of Troy there would appear the very eyes of men through loopholes thrust, gazing upon the Greeks with little lust. Such sweet observance in this work was had, that one might see those far-off eyes look sad. In great commanders grace and majesty you might behold, triumphing in their faces, in youth, quick bearing and dexterity, and here and there the painter interlaces pale cowards marching on with trembling paces, which heartless peasants did so well resemble that one would swear he saw them quake and tremble. In Ajax and Ulysses, oh, what art of physiognomy might one behold! The face of either ciphered either's heart, their face their manners most expressly told. In Ajax' eyes blunt rage and rigour rolled, but the mild glance that sly Ulysses lent showed deep regard and smiling government. There pleading might you see grave Nestor stand, as 'twere encouraging the Greeks to fight, making such sober action with his hand that it beguiled attention, charmed the sight. In speech, it seemed, his beard, all silver white, wagged up and down, and from his lips did fly thin winding breath, which curled up to the sky. About him were a press of gaping faces, which seemed to swallow up his sound advice, all jointly listening, but with several graces, as if some mermaid did their ears entice. Some high, some low, the painter was so nice. The scalps of many, almost hid behind, to jump up higher seemed, to mock the mind. Here one man's hand leaned on another's head, his nose being shadowed by his neighbour's ear. Here one being thronged bears back, all boln and red, another smothered seems to pelt and swear. And in their rage such signs of rage they bear, as, but for loss of Nestor's golden words, it seemed they would debate with angry swords. For much imaginary work was there, conceit deceitful, so compact, so kind, that for Achilles' image stood his spear, gripped in an armed hand, himself behind was left unseen, save to the eye of mind. A hand, a foot, a face, a leg, a head, stood for the whole to be imagined. And from the walls of strong besieged Troy, when their brave hope bold Hector marched to field, stood many Trojan mothers, sharing joy, to see their youthful sons bright weapons wield. And to their hope they such odd action yield, that through their light joy seemed to appear, like bright things stained, a kind of heavy fear. And from the strand of Dardan where they fought, to Simwa's reedy banks the red blood ran, whose waves to imitate the battle sought, with swelling ridges, and their ranks began to break upon the Gallid shore, and then retire again, till, meeting greater ranks, they join and shoot their foam at Simwa's banks. To this well-painted piece is Lucrece come, to find a face where all distress is stilled. Many she sees where cares have carved some, but none where all distress and dolour dwelled. Till she despairing Hecuba beheld, staring on Priam's wounds with her old eyes, which bleeding under Pyrrhus' proud foot lies. In her the painter had anatomized Time's ruin, beauty's wreck, and grim care's reign. Her cheeks with chops and wrinkles were disguised, of what she was no semblance did remain, her blue blood changed to black in every vein. Wanting the spring that those shrunk pipes had fed, showed life imprisoned in a body dead. On this sad shadow Lucrece spends her eyes, and shapes her sorrow to the Bedlam's woes, who nothing wants to answer her but cries, and bitter words to ban her cruel foes. The painter was no god to lend her those, and therefore Lucrece swears he did her wrong, to give her so much grief and not a tongue. Poor instrument, quoth she, without a sound, I'll tune thy woes with my lamenting tongue, and drop sweet balm in Priam's painted wound, and rail on Pyrrhus that hath done him wrong, and with my tears quench Troy that burns so long, and with my knife scratch out the angry eyes of all the Greeks that are thine enemies. Show me the strumpet that began this stir, that with my nails her beauty I may tear. Thy heat of lust, fond Paris, did incur this load of wrath that burning Troy doth bear. Thy eye kindled the fire that burneth here, and here in Troy, for trespass of thine eye, the sire, the son, the dame, and daughter die. Why should the private pleasure of some one become the public plague of many mo? Let sin, alone committed, light alone upon his head that hath transgressed so. Let guiltless souls be freed from guilty woe. For one's offence why should so many fall, to plague a private sin in general? Lo, here weeps Hecuba, here Priam dies, here manly Hector faints, here Troilus swoons, here friend by friend in bloody channel lies, and friend to friend gives unadvised wounds, and one man's lust these many lives confounds. Had doting Priam checked his son's desire, Troy had been bright with fame, and not with fire. Here feelingly she weeps Troy's painted woes, for sorrow, like a heavy hanging bell, once set on ringing, with his own weight goes, then little strength rings out the doleful knell. So Lucrece, set a work, sad tales doth tell, to penciled pensiveness and coloured sorrow, she lends them words, and she their looks doth borrow. She throws her eyes about the painting round, and whom she finds forlorn she doth lament. At last she sees a wretched image bound, that piteous looks to Phrygian shepherds lent. His face, though full of cares, yet showed content. Onward to Troy with the blunt swains he goes, so mild, that patience seemed to scorn his woes. In him the painter laboured with his skill, to hide deceit, and give the harmless show, an humble gait, calm looks, eyes wailing still, a brow unbent that seemed to welcome woe, cheeks neither red nor pale, but mingled so, that blushing red no guilty instance gave, nor ashy pale the fear that false hearts have. But, like a constant and confirmed devil, he entertained a show so seeming just, and therein so ensconced his secret evil, that jealousy itself could not mistrust, false creeping craft and perjury should thrust into so bright a day such black-faced storms, or blot with hell-born sin such saint-like forms. The well-skilled workman this mild image drew for perjured Sinon, whose enchanting story the credulous old Priam after slew, whose words like wildfire burnt the shining glory of rich-built Ilion, that the sighs were sorry, and little stars shot from their fixed places, when their glass fell wherein they viewed their faces. This picture she advisedly perused, and chid the painter for his wondrous skill, saying some shape in Sinon's was abused, so fair a form lodged not a mind so ill. And still on him she gazed, and gazing still, such signs of truth in his plain face she spied, that she concludes the picture was belied. It cannot be, quoth she, that so much guile, she would have said, can lurk in such a look, but Tarquin's shape came in her mind the while, and from her tongue can lurk from cannot took. It cannot be, she in that sense forsook, and turned it thus, it cannot be, I find, but such a face should bear a wicked mind. For even as subtle Sinon here is painted, so sober sad, so weary and so mild, as if with grief or travail he had fainted, to me came Tarquin armed, so beguiled with outward honesty, but yet defiled with inward vice, as Priam him did cherish, so did I Tarquin, so my Troy did perish. Look, look, how listening Priam wets his eyes, to see those borrowed tears that Sinon sheds. Priam, why art thou old and yet not wise? For every tear he falls a Trojan bleeds. His eye drops fire, no water thence proceeds. Those round clear pearls of his, that move thy pity, are balls of quenchless fire to burn thy city. Such devils steal effects from lightless hell, for Sinon in his fire doth quake with cold, and in that cold hot burning fire doth dwell. These contraries such unity do hold, only to flatter fools and make them bold. So Priam's trust false Sinon's tears doth flatter, that he finds means to burn his Troy with water. Here, all enraged, such passion her assails, that patience is quite beaten from her breast. She tears the senseless Sinon with her nails, comparing him to that unhappy guest, whose deed hath made herself detest. At last she smilingly with this gives o'er. Fool, fool, quoth she, his wounds will not be sore. Thus ebbs and flows the current of her sorrow, and time doth weary time with her complaining. She looks for night, and then she longs for morrow, and both she thinks too long with her remaining. Short time seems long in sorrow's sharp sustaining. Though woe be heavy, yet it seldom sleeps, and they that watch see time, how slow it creeps. Which all this time hath overslipped her thought, that she with painted images hath spent, being from the feeling of her own grief brought, by deep surmise of others' detriment, losing her woes in shows of discontent. It easeth some, though none it ever cured, to think their dolour others have endured. End of Section 9.